The Brazilian men's volleyball team has seen better days. They haven't undergone a generational change, and the once top team in the world seem to be slowly losing its place at the pinnacle of volleyball. But in 2023, during the Olympic qualifiers, Darlan emerged before the world. This young opposite hitter not only helped his team secure a spot for the upcoming Olympic Games, but also made it clear that Brazil would be in the medal hunt. Today, let's talk about this phenomenon, one of the brightest players in recent years, the opposite hitter of the Brazilian men's volleyball team, Darlan Souza. As usual, in our Play Like a Pro segment, we'll cover not only the player's biography, but also analyze his technique. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Darlan Souza was born on June 24, 2002 in Nilópolis, a municipality in the state of Rio de Janeiro. His childhood wasn't exactly a fairy tale. Coming from a poor family, he had to make a lot of sacrifices. The youngest son in the Souza family was quite introverted. He stayed at home most of the time and rarely interacted with other kids, which worried his mother a lot. She tried to get him to go outside, fly kites, ride a bike, and make friends. Initially, Darlan chose soccer. However, his tall stature got him placed as a goalkeeper, and he was afraid of getting hit in the face by the ball. Instead of trying to block the ball, he'd close his eyes and cover his face, so he switched to volleyball. Now his mom worries about him hitting other players in the face, and if he does, he always apologizes. It's no secret that Darlan has an older brother, Alan, who also plays for the national team. It was natural for the younger brother to follow in his footsteps, and that's exactly what happened. But they have another brother, Alex, who isn't into sports at all, so Darlan could have taken a different path. Two factors shaped the character of this future volleyball star: anime and, of course, his brother Alan. Darlan says he had it easy. Alan had to overcome numerous obstacles since no one in their family was into sports, and he had to achieve everything on his own. He had no money and no proper support. He collected cans and worked odd jobs to support his training. Their father even had to borrow money to keep Alan's training going. Alan taught Darlan a valuable life lesson: if you want something, just go and do it. No one will do it for you. Even if you lack the means, find a way. Darlan admits that if he were in his brother's shoes, he probably would have given up. But that doesn't mean things were easy for Darlan. To make it to practice, he had to wake up very early to catch a train that left at 5:30 a.m. The train station was a 20-minute walk away, and he almost never had money for the bus. To save money, he often had lunch at friends' houses and didn't get home before 9 p.m. As soon as Darlan decided to pursue volleyball, Alan stepped in to help his brother, making his path easier and more successful. Alan taught him volleyball techniques, and Darlan doesn't hide the fact that he simply copied his older brother's playing style. The younger Souza went to the same sports school that Alan attended. After going through stages in Flamengo and Fluminense, the Souza brothers reunited at SESI, where Darlan still plays and led the team to a Brazilian Superliga championship. Darlan always tried to compete with his older brother, but for a long time he couldn't succeed because Alan was older, smarter, stronger, more technical and experienced. However, this passion for training allowed Darlan to progress rapidly and make it to the national team, where he debuted at the World Championship at 19 and helped his team win bronze medals. At 20, he helped Brazil win the Pan American Games, and at 21, he qualified Brazil for the Olympic Games, set a Brazilian Superliga scoring record, won gold with SESI, and was named MVP of the tournament. Despite the fierce competition with his brother, with whom they now form the main pair of opposite hitters for the Brazilian national team, they have a great affection for each other's successes. Darlan was proud when Alan was named MVP of the Victorious World Cup in 2019. Alan was very proud when Darlan became MVP of the Pan American Games in 2023. Even now, when one of them is playing in the starting lineup for Brazil, you can be sure that the other Souza, sitting on the bench, is proud of his brother. Their mother has the hardest time in this situation. She doesn't know whom to worry about more and misses her sons terribly, whom she rarely sees. She also dislikes leaving Brazil. Only in 2023 did she make an exception to travel to Chile and support Darlan at the Pan American Games, which was an incredible surprise and motivation for him. As I mentioned earlier, Brazil became champions there and Darlan was named MVP. If the main driver of success for this national team player was his family, especially his brother, Darlan had another passion: anime. it's hard not to notice his hand movements before serving. These are jutsu hand signs from the Naruto anime. He's also a fan of other works. He has a tattoo of Kyojuro Rengoku, the Demon Slayer. Additionally, there's a quote from the anime Haikyuu: "We don't need memories." This is perhaps the main strategy for this player during a volleyball match. There's no point in getting upset over mistakes. It's impossible to score every ball and get points 100% of the time, because the players on the other side are just as good and want to win just as much, especially when it comes to battles with the best players from their countries. If you make a mistake, it's no big deal, just focus on the next rally. Many people looking at Darlan's physical condition wonder about his training regimen, but he hasn't revealed much detail. He pays a lot of attention to his back because he and Alan have a congenital muscle problem in that area. While it may not stand out on the court, during weight training they can lift significantly more weight with their left hand than with their right, so they need to regularly address this issue. Despite Darlan's impressive legs, he doesn't like training his lower body, but understands it's essential. Proper nutrition is also crucial, though he still has some bad habits from his childhood. He was addicted to instant noodles and fast food. While he's managed to kick the noodle habit now that he earns his own money, he sometimes leaves home and returns with a container full of potatoes, bacon, sausage and cheese. However, he reassures his mom that he burns it all off during training, and he wasn't lying. At his last medical checkup at Sessi, he weighed 104 kilograms with only 7% body fat. He also recorded a maximum reach of 363 centimeters with a height of 192 centimeters and a vertical leap of over 1 meter from a standing position. Due to his intense training regimen, it's hard for Darlan to build long-term relationships. He's currently focused on his successful sports career rather than finding a significant other, despite previous attempts to balance his personal life. Now let's analyze the technique and playing style of Brazil's opposite hitter. Again, I'll clarify that this isn't a professional analysis, just my thoughts on the player, without deep tactical or technical insight. Let's start with his attacking, which is what stands out most about him. Powerful attacks and incredible energy during celebrations make watching him enjoyable for both new viewers and seasoned volleyball fans. Unlike some other volleyball players, Darlan's playing strategy is closely tied to his technical skills. Understanding it wasn't difficult, and I'll share my thoughts on this. Starting with his frontline attacks, his physical power and explosive strength are more than enough to generate a great jump without any complex maneuvers. I often cite Nishida as an example of using an approach effectively, but executing such technical potential heavily depends on the setter. It's almost impossible to replicate at an amateur level. However, Souza offers a replicable template, so consider his approach if you struggle with positioning under the ball. I get asked about this a lot. Here's your solution. What am I talking about? When Darlan is on the front line, he uses only 3 steps for his approach, regardless of the situation. Whether it's after a reception or defense, it doesn't matter. He steps back into position, waits for the setter's hands to touch the ball, and then begins his approach. Ideally, you'd have some initial speed to increase your jump height and hitting power. But again, the Brazilian has no issues with these variables and can play at the highest level with ease. If we go back to the amateur level, this analysis is relevant to many because the training volume is significantly lower than that of professionals. This type of approach gives you better control over the setter's pass, defense, and opponent's block. It also improves ball control. So if you don't have severe problems with jump height, but have issues with ball contact and positioning, try this approach in your training and games. When I return to the court after a long break, I also use a shorter approach to hit the ball more accurately. As I get back in shape, I start using a longer approach. Darlan uses a typical professional volleyball approach when attacking from the back row. Here he adds an extra 2 or 3 steps to build up initial speed. He starts his approach earlier so that by the time the setter touches the ball, he has already taken 2, 3 steps, and by the moment of the set, he's executing a powerful penultimate step. Speaking of footwork, let's analyze it in more detail. Initially, everything looks quite standard. If we look at the final stage of the approach, those 3 steps, the first step traditionally helps to gradually build up maximum speed. Then comes a powerful and wide penultimate step that generates the force for the jump. Finally, the stopping step converts horizontal energy into vertical energy. What caught my attention was Darlan's stopping step. While most volleyball players either place their foot parallel or turn their foot inward, Souza often turns both feet outward, which looks unusual. Have you ever seen this before? Regarding his arm swing, there's nothing to criticize. Great amplitude and speed of movement. Some might think the opposite hitter swings his arms in a wide arc, but with his powerful back, it's almost impossible to bring them closer. In reality, this has little impact on the final result. The final amplitude of the arm swing in the last phase can significantly influence the jump. Darlan uses his arms to the fullest, with both the hitting arm and the non-hitting arm fully extended. Only after he starts lifting off the ground does he pull the hitting arm's elbow back. Then, in the classic sequence, starting with the hips and finishing with the wrist, he executes the attack. Before analyzing his attacking actions, let me make a few more notes. Darlan often leans forward during his approach. With proper technique, extending the hips from this position can add height to your jump. However, this makes it harder to keep visual contact with the ball. Darlan uses this element at full power from the back row. It's not as convenient for front row attacks. Speaking of professionals using a lean during the approach, Wilfredo Leon comes to mind. Also, because the Brazilian often jumps forward rather than straight up, you can see him tucking his legs. Many think this is a cheat code for jumping, but it's mostly a natural body reaction, an attempt to stabilize in the air. Now, let's analyze his attacking actions. As I said earlier, they depend on his technical features. You can clearly understand the range of his attacks from his approach. Given his muscle mass and less flexible shoulder, it's hard for him to outsmart defenders, as he often has to turn his whole body in the air to attack down the line. You can predict Souza's attack direction from his approach. If he approaches widely from position 2 or 4, he will likely hit sharply diagonally. If his approach is narrower, he might aim for the corner of zone 1, attack over the block, or try to hit between blockers. From the back row, with a straight approach, it's unlikely he'll perform cut shots. Attacks down the line are more straightforward for him. There's a small nuance that will probably disappear with experience. Unlike Slovenia's opposite hitter Stern, who can easily hit down the line even in a corridor of less than 30 centimeters, Darlan won't attempt such a narrow shot and will shift to a diagonal attack. These weaknesses show in games against strong teams with excellent blocking and analytical departments. Now, let's move on to his blocking. In his native position too, he rarely uses an approach to block the opponent on the other side of the net. At most, he'll take a step. So, if you're an opposite hitter or a setter and can jump chest high without much effort, this technique isn't suitable. Why did I focus on these positions? Because they spend most of their time blocking in position 2. But when Souza moves to position 4, magic happens. A full approach with an arm swing allows him to reach a great height and more effectively close the distance to the opponent's attackers. This looks much more effective. However, in position 2, Darlan is a middle blocker's dream. They don't have to adjust to his footwork and can easily line up with him because he doesn't drift sideways, even though he starts between positions. In blocking, he often doesn't try to guess, but uses maximum block height to cover zone 6. Finally, let's touch on another important but less obvious skill for an opposite hitter: defense. Like in attacking, this can be broken down into certain patterns. When Darlan defends against attacks from the center of the net or from positions 2 and 1 while he's in the back row, he positions himself as you see on your screens. He uses a wide and deep stance, allowing him to utilize his explosive power better. He often uses this stance when defending against attacks from the opponent's 4th zone. Here, he positions himself near the sideline around the 5 to 6 meter mark to be ready for tips and direct attacks. If he notices that the set for the opponent isn't ideal, he moves slightly deeper towards the center. When he's in the front row, he covers the line from 2 to 2 or 4 to 4, depending on which side he's on. He's usually in position 2, but there are moments when he defends from position 4. Let's finish the analytical part with his serve, a signature element of the Brazilian opposite hitter. It's always powerful and impressive. Even if you don't follow this player closely, you've likely seen short clips of his pre-serve ritual. For those who don't know, all those hand movements are hand signs from the anime Naruto. Let's test my subscribers' knowledge of this series. If anyone knows which hand sign Darlan is trying to use, write your answer in the comments, and for those unfamiliar with Naruto, your comments will help them understand what the Brazilian is invoking. Of course, the ritual doesn't end there. After the hand sign, Souza moves to the service area. There are a few minor variations, but some actions are done consistently and with a remarkable precision. Darlan holds the ball with both hands and taps it on the floor exactly 3 times. Then he holds the ball in his right hand and adjusts his shorts with his left hand, even if they are already in place. With these rituals complete, he is ready to serve. You're probably waiting for me to reveal Darlan's serving tendencies, and I will, but in a top 3 format. In 3rd place are his straight serves. They're not the most dangerous or aggressive, but are sometimes used in matches. 2nd place goes to his diagonal serve between positions 1 and 6. This one is more interesting, but not as commonly seen. The undisputed number 1 in his arsenal is his serve to position 6. He uses this serve most often. It's the strongest and most consistent. This concludes the analysis of the dynamic Brazilian opposite hitter, Darlan Souza. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to let me know who you'd like to see featured in the next episode of this series. As always, this is Nick. Love what you do and you will succeed. See you soon. Bye.